Okay, and we are live here today. Thank you for joining us. I know Debbie is really excited to get into this topic, her favorite topic of all, user experience and customer experience. And I'm Lee Andrews, and I'm with Akathame, and this is Debbie Levit with DeltaCX. And between us, we're hoping to evangelize the importance and necessity for true user experience and customer experience within every organization, regardless of how large or small they are. So today I'm going to be asking some questions that are, can be considered uncomfortable for many people, especially watching. And so hopefully, and I want to get over to my page. For some reason, it's not letting me, because I want to make sure I'm not missing any comments.
Let's see if it's telling me that you're live on LinkedIn. Yes, it says you're live on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, one day this is going to go really super smooth. Okay, there we go.
I know. Right. It took me weeks. I feel you.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. So we're going to dive right into this. So let me just start by saying that Debbie and I have known each other for over a decade. And she was one of the people that actually helped educate me when I first got into user experience. I became a certified usability analyst, but knew that that was just the beginning of my learning before I represented or supported hiring managers in this domain. And Debbie helped acclimate me to this space. So yes, thank you for all that. Thank you for all of my mentors and coaches along the years. But since then, I've become quite the evangelist for this function within an organization because I am a user and I use products every day that make me work just a little too hard to use them. And so I no longer use those products. And so my interest in user experience is really quite selfish. And it's about making sure that nobody, including my 90-year-old mother, ever has to work with anything that makes her life more complicated and difficult. So today, I am going to ask Debbie some questions that really get to the heart of where user experience is. So we've got a lot of layoffs happening, Debbie. People are cutting.
I've noticed.
Yeah, they're cutting this capability in their organizations right and left. What does that mean for the end user? I mean, where is this going to leave us?
Well, let's just start by, first of all, thank you for having me. So first of all, things weren't going fantastically for customers to begin with. We were all, as users and customers, we were all constantly meeting what I call the 4 horsemen of bad UX, registered trademark. And they are frustration, confusion, disappointment, and distraction. And think about how many times you visited a website, opened up something on your phone, ran an app, and you were right there, face to face with those 4 horsemen. So it wasn't going fantastically to begin with. But when companies start cutting user experience, what I found is that in some of the layoffs right now, they'll keep some engineers because they think, oh, engineers, they'll fix broken things, they'll code some things we were planning to work on. But like, we don't need all those fancy artsy fartsy hipsters. What were they just doing? Drawing screens? We don't need that. And it just shows first of all, it shows that there is no strategic plan. Because if you had a strategic plan for 2020 or even for the quarter, mute me.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No problem. I've done that too. So if you had a strategic plan, you should be following it. But when I see companies just cutting people, it tells me the strategic plan was either crap or meaningless. The company has no money in the bank to even pay some salaries to get good work done while the world is sleeping and confused and in pain and suffering. So we could have companies who are taking this time to better understand the market, better understand their customers, do research into what changing mental models and mindsets are and what the post-pandemic world looks like. But instead, I find a lot of people are just frozen. Like, oh my God, don't do anything, don't spend money, cut people. And I understand that on somebody's spreadsheet that looks like a good idea, but it doesn't make a lot of human sense, and it doesn't make a lot of sense for what our customers are going to need, because many companies already were giving us junk, and this would be a great time to fix that junk. Now we don't have to say we don't have time. We don't
Right.
have time for user research. Agile, agile, agile. Faster, faster, faster. Now we have time. But instead of taking that time and using it wisely, I find too many companies out of fear are going, oh my gosh, stop everything, hold your breath. When the world wakes up again, we'll still have a disastrous, terrible product, but we'll fix it later.
So you touched on, let's talk about that for just a second. Agile. Agile was not necessarily intended to overlook product improvement for speed. It was to look at what is the most important problem that we need to solve based on the stories that we're hearing from our end users. So have end users abused that speed thing and said, somehow we missed a connection there. Where do you think that connection broke? Because I really don't believe that Agile is a bad thing. I think that it just helps prioritize what's most important, but it seems to have somehow sidelined that.
Yeah, it's one of those cases, I think, where agile in concept and theory has a lot of good to it, but how it tends to get played out in companies is unfortunate. And so, what I tend to find is that if you look at some of the core of agile, some of the original agile manifesto, there's things in there that pretty much we could all agree with. Principle number one of agile, our highest priority is customer satisfaction. Principle number 10, my favorite, simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. So don't do wasteful work. Don't do wasteful things, which also, calls on its cousin lean. There's principle 9, which is what? Continuous attention, or attention to good design helps agility. I'm forgetting the exact quote right now, but they do mention good design, enhancing agility. And so there are things that are in the DNA of Agile that should be customer centric, that should be about creating customer value, that and of course, if you look at Agile, it says we are supposed to, when we release a feature, we are supposed to gather feedback, interpret that feedback, and feed it back into the system. So if we release something and we quickly find customers don't like it, they have problems, they met the 4 horsemen, we're supposed to proactively get that feedback, interpret it, and get it back in and go, ooh, wait a minute. And in fact, Agile Principle 2 says we welcome changing requirements even late in the game if it benefits the customer or the competitive advantage. And again, I'm paraphrasing here. Don't say Debbie misquoted it. I'm close enough. And so there's all these pieces of Agile that say, whoa, if you find you're going in the wrong direction, stop.
So
go in a better direction.
What happened, Debbie, is what I'm trying to, where did we miss the mark?
Yeah, so I think what happened was a lot of people didn't understand that agility at its core was really about harnessing change and being willing to be nimble and make quick changes and see feedback and make changes. And they thought it was about going faster, 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 because they saw all of the stuff about we're going to put teams on a reliable, recurring cadence, and we're going to time box things. This is what you're going to do in a week. This is what you're going to do in 2 weeks. These are units of time. And engineers started getting judged by things like velocity. And velocity is how much did you get done in what amount of time? Well, that's like saying, well, the McDonald's worker is best when they make more hamburgers per hour. And so we have accidentally turned engineers into, hey robot, how fast can you do this? And that has bled out into UX and product, where it's like, UX, we don't want to spend time on research. Like, let's just get this out fast, fast, fast. And that's not what agility is really about.
So what you're telling me is that the business need has come before the customer need, because what you're talking about are really, these are all common factors that start companies, keep companies in business, and sustainable is getting product to market as fast as you possibly can. I mean, let's talk about Microsoft and all the products that they launched that had plenty of flaws, and it's taken still years. They're still not right? So but does everybody have the luxury of that kind of time that Microsoft is taking, right? To keep getting
Right.
better and better at what they do.
The common fallacy is, well, if we don't treat agile as an opportunity to go faster, 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 how fast can we get this to market? Then usually the opposite is, oh my God, we're waterfall, or oh my God, think about Apple taking a year to come out with their next phone. And people only see these two things. But if you look at the original recommendations for agile, agile suggests that you release something to the customer every few weeks or every few months or somewhere in between. So it doesn't have to be, oh my God, let's get tiny pieces of crap out to people as fast as we can and fix it later. That doesn't work. That's a money burner and a time waster and a customer angerer. And then on the other end, you have kind of the old school version of, well, we'll have our research and development team spend 2 years on it. And then people go, oh, we can't do that anymore. So we have to remember there's something in the middle that
Right.
deals more in months rather than, oh my God, just get it out first to market, fast to market. That doesn't mean you did it right or well. And then of course there's the other end. So it's about finding that happy medium and about finding what kind of cadence works best for your company and its products. But to me, we have to reprioritize quality because nobody gets a trophy for continuously releasing garbage that has to be fixed later.
That's right. All right. We're going to move on to the next topic. And by the way, folks, this call only lasts until 9:30. So I am going to be fast and furious with these questions to Debbie. So
I'm sorry, I give long answers. I'm sorry.
that's okay. I know when to interject. So the next,
Cut me off.
The next question is, I'm going to change things a little bit. So
yeah,
I remember when I got it was probably one of my very first requirements that I ever took as an agent for UX. And the client asked for a web developer. And I said, really now? Do you really need a web developer? And so
what is that?
Right. And I knew enough about UX to be successful in that I don't want to send anybody to take on a job that wasn't right. Right. So it turned out that they really needed a UX designer, somebody who had more of that research and testing ability before it even got to design and development. Right. So that is exactly the right person that I sent to do the job. And she did a great job. But here's the question. If you are a UX practitioner, I mean, personally, your portfolios, the portfolios of digital designers have to be kept up. If you're not growing every 6 months to a year, you become irrelevant in this domain, right? You really have to. So what is your advice to people who are looking either for their first job, their second or third job, or whatever job it is that wherever they are in their profession? How should they be discerning what hiring manager to work with, what team to work with, what company to work with? Like what's the criteria that you look at before accepting an engagement or an opportunity?
Okay, so me as the talent.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm looking for when I'm the talent and there's an open job or a recruiter bringing something to me is I'm trying to figure out a little bit more about the project and a little bit more about what the company understands about my role. Because as we've talked about from time to time, there are way too many companies who don't understand what UX is or does. And if you bring me in with my extensive experience and my love of problem finding and problem solving and I'm on the psychology science side of things, and you say, just get you some screens. I will, but that is not the best utilization of me, and that would be a sin in the realm of lean. So I try to figure out, what is this job actually looking for? Are they really looking for a pair of hands grunt worker to just sketch what the competitor's doing? Or are they really looking for someone who has the depth and approach that I'm going to bring to it? So I'm trying to foresee if I'm going to be at least somewhat understood and at least somewhat appreciated, or if I'm walking into a frying pan of hot oil.
So what questions would you ask that hiring manager or client, however you want to look at that person? What questions would you ask them to discern whether or not they understood the the practices and the impact of user experience?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think I sometimes end up asking about if there is an existing process, and if that process is kind of well defined, if it's still being evolved, if it's open to change. So, what's the process now? When work comes in or a project comes in, who starts with it? Who collaborates? Who's working with whom? When do I come in? Am I able to come in early and talk with project managers and product managers and determine what does this even look like, and to estimate my own time? Or is all of that planned without me, and someone shows up at a kickoff meeting and says, "Oh, Debbie, UX, we've heard of that. You can have a day to make us some wireframes." So I typically ask, like, what is our team or department or strategy or project strategy or typical process, so I can try to get an idea of whether this process sounds like it's going to be reasonable, or if it's going to be one of those jobs where I can start to sense I'm going to be set up to fail.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. I really do believe it's talking about the process. And I would also suggest that people ask the question, tell me about your most significant accomplishment. The same questions that hiring managers and potential customers ask of their providers, we need to be asking right back, right? So what's your most significant accomplishment as part of the UX organization? How have you impacted the product and the organization over the past year? And what is your process? So if they can answer those three questions and walk me through the scenarios, I think it makes it easier for me to understand what we're dealing with, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think juniors need to do a little bit of this too, because I think juniors are so excited to get their first job. They don't want to ask any questions. They just
Right.
want to say yes. And then they end up coming to people like you and people like me and saying, "Why am I in this hell nightmare job? What did I do?" And they end up with imposter syndrome, and they end up in over their head. And I think it's important to learn more about, like, especially for juniors, the question they should ask is, what support is there for junior practitioners? I've had so many juniors come to me and say, "Yeah, I finally got my first job," but they're not helping me. They're not reviewing my work. Like,
Wow.
I don't know if I'm doing this right. My boot camp or whatever said, go find a job and have them mentor and support and coach and help you. And this job didn't do that. And I say, well, did they promise you that when you interviewed? Oh, I didn't ask. I just thought all juniors got mentoring and support. That's what my boot camp made it sound like.
All right, let's talk about that. You said it. I'm going to go there. I am going to go there. So I'm a former high school teacher. I also taught post-secondary school.
Thank you.
And it was an honor.
Thank you for your service.
Thanks. I will tell you, I have met with and reviewed some portfolios of those graduating from boot camps, and they're scratching their heads as to why they're not getting placed. And it seems obvious to me why they're not getting represented or hired in many cases. In some cases, they are getting represented and hired quite nicely. So what happened? I mean, is there an existing, so if you're going to get a human factors or HCI undergrad or graduate degree, that's one thing. You're getting lots of psychology, lots of technology. One would hope, right?
Not in every case. I've seen some pretty bad degrees.
And well, there we have that. So if I were to come to you and say, I want to learn UX, let's forego the throwing darts at what we know are obvious problems out there with some current boot camps. What should they be using? What questions, qualifying questions, should they be asking of that school or trainer before signing the dotted line?
So I did a lot of research on this, and for months I spoke with unhappy bootcamp graduates to learn what went wrong for them, because it doesn't make sense to guess, it makes sense to find out. That's what we do in UX. And so I learned that a lot of people had not really researched the programs at all, that they had heard a sales pitch, they had seen a money back guarantee or an opportunity to defer payment, and they figured, how bad could this be? So the number one piece of advice I have for people who are considering boot camps or even private study with someone or a trainer or coach, is really, really, really dig into their background. Because what I find is that a lot of boot camps will present someone and say they are your UX instructor, but sometimes that person has little or no UX experience. They might be a visual designer or artist. They might be a web developer or front end developer. They might not have ever had a UX job. In many cases, boot camps hire people who graduated 6 months before because it helps their hired after graduation numbers, and that's your instructor or that's your advisor. And people have said to me in the interviews, like, I really didn't look into that person enough, or I looked at their LinkedIn, but I really didn't understand how good or bad they were. And so I try to tell people, look at the titles that people have at jobs, and you're looking for UX specific titles. You're not looking for UI designer, you're not looking for UX front end developer, you're looking for UX specific titles, because if this person is teaching you interaction design, you want to see that they've done extensive interaction design for web and mobile. If this person is teaching you information architecture, have they had at least a couple of jobs where they did information architecture? If they're going to teach you about UX research, can they show deep, extensive UX research projects? You want to learn from the veterans and experts who know how to do this and have done it at a few jobs. But I find that even where people are checking, they're looking at someone's LinkedIn, they're seeing, oh, they graduated from a boot camp 6 months ago, or wow, they've been working in UX a year. And some of the boot camps actually BS this by saying, you don't need someone with a PhD to teach you how to tie your shoes. This is literally what one school says, and I won't say which one. You don't need someone with a PhD to learn how to tie your shoes. You only need to learn it from someone who already knows how to tie their shoes. So we should be learning to tie our shoes from toddlers who learn how to. So that's a false, it's a logical fallacy, but it helps them sell the idea of, hey, you can learn UX from the class before you. The person who studied UX 6 months before you, we graduated them. They can tie their shoes. You should learn from them. And I tell people, you want to look for at least 5, 6, or more years of UX experience. They should be senior, lead, principal, or higher to be teaching you about UX. Otherwise, we run the risk. I mean, some of these places already have crap curriculum. So good or bad curriculum, who is teaching you? And I find people aren't even checking.
Yeah. So again, you want to look at the qualifications of the instructor. And if the instructor doesn't have a portfolio of experience, then we probably don't want to use that person's as a starting point in learning. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, the problem is a newbie to UX won't be able to assess a UX portfolio. They won't be able to look at someone's UX portfolio and go, wow, that person's a good practitioner, that person's not. But I say, even if you look at their LinkedIn and look at their job history, you are looking for an impressive job history of UX specific titles, not UI, not UX UI, not I was the visual designer, but I made some wireframes. You are looking for someone who has lived this and worked their way up. And so that's important. And because also at these boot camps, who is reviewing your work? Very often at these boot camps, when they give you an assignment, nobody reviews your work, or someone unqualified reviews your work. One school I won't name has web developers reviewing UX assignments.
So let me wrap up that section.
Sure.
We want to be taught by people who have lived and breathed the work, right? Not just the work.
4 years.
For at least 4 to 5 years, you're saying? 4 to 5 years?
Yeah, I'm saying at least 5 years. I mean, who would you want? Who do you take piano lessons from? The person who learned piano 6 months ago?
So the other reason that that's important, that we tend to often overlook, especially as learners, is that you're not just learning the craft from that UX practitioner, from that teacher. You're learning how that craft works inside an organization. How does it actually apply to business, the business outcomes? How does it apply to the end user outcomes? And I don't think that you're going to learn that from somebody who simply is going from a textbook without practical application. I mean, that takes experience and knowledge and all that other stuff. So in the 6 minutes that we have left, I want to ask this question.
Sure. Plus to be continued.
Yeah, possibly to be continued. So I'm going to give you a real scenario. So there was a situation where a candidate walked into the job. They accepted this job. A UX practitioner accepted this job. The hiring manager said all the right things, Debbie, all the right things. And when they got into that job, they realized it was not a complete antithesis of what reality was, but very close to it. So how long, once you've accepted that position, right? Let's say you accepted that position and you realize that things are not what you thought they were going to be. We can prevent that by doing short-term contract work before we accept a full-time position. We know that that's an option. But what if, especially during times like this, when people are going to be desperate for that gig, how long should they hang there, or how can they lovingly, kindly, and gently move that needle? What are some of the speaks that we can, share with them?
Yeah, that's a hard one. So that's going to vary
Right.
from person to person. And I also think that it really depends on how disastrous that job is, because certainly this has happened to me a number of times. I can think of a job where I was told, oh my God, we need your expertise, we need your specialty, we need your domain knowledge. Oh my God, come help save this disaster project. And when I got there, the lead UX person wouldn't let me do anything but wireframe other people's ideas.
Hmm.
And so obviously that was nowhere near what I thought everybody else had promised me all along the way. And so depending upon what your financial situation is, depending upon the job landscape, which right now is unfortunately very bleak. So this might be a job that you are staying in for now. If this is April 2020, this might be a job you are staying in for now, and doing the best you can, even if they are not utilizing you well, correctly, or at all. And I would just be aggressively behind the scenes applying to other jobs. But in a down market like this, we don't have a lot of options. It's not what it was a year ago. And so I would say if this is something someone is experiencing now during the pandemic, where there's higher unemployment and jobs are being cut, then maybe you hang on there a little bit longer to make that paycheck, hopefully make some good connections at the company from the people who do get you and do appreciate you. Do the best work you can in the bad situation you're in, and move on as soon as you can. Not everybody has the finances to say, F this, I'm out of here. I did that with that job. It was a contract and I quit after 4 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. So again, you touched on something that I'm going to talk about, and thank you for that. I think that was spot on, and I think that networking is really important. Let's make sure that we highlight that, because whoever you work with on your first job, you will know them throughout your entire career, hopefully. Do you think that UX is a fad? Do you think that this economic downturn is going to tell companies that user experience is not a necessity? Do you think that it is going to just be a fad? And we've homogenized it so much that enough people who are designers and developers can do it. What do you think?
Yeah. I think that is the false beliefs that we're currently operating under. I don't believe that's where it's going. I'm always hoping it's not where it's going. UX is a unique specialty and set of specialties that takes certain talents, skills, behaviors, personality traits, where not everybody would be great at it. And let's face it, not everybody is a great salesperson. Not everybody is a great developer. And UX and CX are the same, where there are just things that if we're good at it, there's magic we can create. And I think that the reason why UX to some people seems like a fad or something we can easily cut is just because they don't understand it, and because they haven't calculated the true cost of their own corporate failures. If we were to take the failure of feature A or product A and look at the time and money we spent fixing that or band-aiding that and put it back in the feature A budget, we would go, holy poop on a stick. That was overtime, over budget, and heads should roll. But instead, it gets tucked into other budgets, like the budget of feature B, which we happen to be working on when feature A exploded into a hellfire, or it gets built into some other budget C. And nobody ever puts this together holistically and says, holy poop on a stick. We thought we saved time and money by doing feature A this way and just releasing it and getting it out. But when we really analyze the time and money that we spent delivering crap to people, having to figure that out, having to react to it, piling on the business risk, and then having to fix it or undo it later, holy cats, this isn't working for us.
Right.
And then I hope they'll circle around, because they'll say, wow, we have great engineers, we have great product people, we have great marketers, we have great salespeople. What's that missing piece? And hopefully someone will hit them on the head with my book and say, hey, you should really be looking at bringing in some veteran and expert UX people, making a nice department with people at different levels, and actually giving them autonomy and decision-making power in their own domain. Stop overruling them and underutilizing them.
And on that note, Debbie, I'm just now seeing all the comments on LinkedIn and Facebook and everywhere else, and you've got cheerleaders all over the place. Dr. Nick
Thank
Fine,
you.
Yes. You've got cheerleaders. You've got Darren Hood. You've got several people who are commenting, and they're all in agreement with you. So let's.
Dr. Nick said Debbie for president. Thank you, Dr. Nick.
So let's go ahead and wrap this session up. I agree with you. I don't think that UX is necessarily going anywhere, but I do think just like every function within an organization, everybody's going to be evaluated based on economic impact, right? So that's number one. And then I really do believe that the UX profession, the professionals and the leaders have a very big responsibility here. If they don't set the stage, if they don't set the culture and the tone of talking about customers first, end users first, whether they're internal or external at an organization, and solving their problems first, they are going to find themselves at the short end of the stick. And those who, hold on to this UX domain with all of its practices, from research to prototyping, and bring in the right people at the right time to do the right things, I think are going to be in a much better place. So having said that, thank you so much, Debbie Levit, for joining this very frank discussion, as they always are on LinkedIn Live. And I hope that you all enjoyed it. Debbie's book is out there on Amazon. I suggest that everybody buy it. She's got another one out there too.
This is the better one.
It is the better one, and it reads like a textbook. So thank you again so much to all of our UX practitioners, because you are of service to people like me and my 90-year-old mother and every other person who uses any type of technology or even opens the door to their home. You are a tremendous asset to the world. Thank you so much.
And you, Arlie.
Everybody.
Thanks.